Hello there, very good evening and a warm welcome to the news live on Rupavahini Channel I. I'm Sharam Muscleanness.
Good evening indeed, I'm Charity Minuprarachi, and now let's move on to the headlines for tonight's news.
12 officers attached to the Police Narcotics Bureau arrested on drug trafficking. Charges are being detained and interrogated. President says bankers to reach out to grassroots to develop villages. Prime Minister says the rapid development in the country collapsed during Yahapal regime since the President and Prime Minister represented two fractions. Former MP Ron Vijayawardena states that those who broke away from United National Party has no political existence. A revelation from former MP Vijayadasa Rajapaksa on former MP Rajitha. A referendum reveals that President Putin, who reigned over 20 years in Russia, is still the most preferred leader in the country. The strike action launched by the employees of the harbour has been suspended temporarily.
On to the stories in detail now, starting off with local news. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa emphasizes that the banking service in the country should understand the rural economy and the needs of the people in order to develop villages. Mere establishment of industries alone cannot be defined as development, pointed out the President, adding that rural entrepreneurship centered around the agriculture should be promoted. The President made these observations during a discussion held at the Presidential Secretariat today to review the current progress and the future activities of the Rural Development Bank. It is timely necessity to develop export agricultural businesses instead of waiting for foreign countries to come into fray. The government expects to achieve economic growth by developing the agriculture while properly assessing needs. President said it is vital to look at the context from the angle of the grassroots level. In providing loans, commercial banks give priority to the trading sector than to the production sector. It is the responsibility of the RDB to encourage farmers to increase their production. The need of promoting the cultivation of undu, maize, green grams and other varieties of grain without resorting to import them was also stressed. President said it is his wish to see that the rural banks reach the rural community and encourage farmers by setting different targets. The loan defaulters who had taken large sums of money on a long-term repayment basis should civilly be dealt with according to the law, the President said. He also said a mechanism should be formulated to collect debts owed to the state banks. Secretary to the President P.B. Jayasundara, Secretary to the Ministry of Finance S.R. Artigala, Governor of the Central Bank Professor W.D. Lakshman and Chairman of the Rural Development Bank Mahinda Salia were also present.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa says that the rapid development in the country was collapsed during Yahapal regime since the President and the Prime Minister represented two fractions. The Premier made these comments at a meeting with the representatives of Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna held at the Baddegama Pradesh Sabha Auditorium this morning. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa said that they require a two-third majority in order to amend the constitution with the aim to free the country from the present situation. He said that they are aiming to bring in representatives who could work along with the President. If not, he said the development process in the country will be stalled similar to the previous 5 years. He said that the rapid development in the country was collapsed during the previous government period since the President and the Prime Minister represented two political fractions which was severely affected to the country and the public. He added that the stance which prevailed, claiming that the elections can only be won with the votes of the North and East regions, were defeated in the presidential election with the votes of the rest of the country. He said that the previous government failed to proceed with the development process which was initiated and carried out by their government in the past. He added that the previous government wasted time on federal system without directing any consideration on the development of these regions.
The court has ordered to detain and interrogate 12 officers attached to the Police Narcotics Bureau whom were taken into custody today for abetting and engaging in drug trafficking racket along with drug peddlers till July 8th. The Criminal Investigation Department arrested them this morning. A police inspector and a sub-inspector are also among the arrestees. Another police sub-inspector, 2 police sergeants and a police constable were taken into custody on alleged drug trafficking charges on previous occasions. Representing the complainants, Deputy Solicitor General Dilip Apiris informed the court that these suspects were taken into custody in accordance to the information obtained from a suspect named Chandana Priyankara, who was arrested in Minuwangoda along with 5 grams of illegal narcotics in his possession. Sri Lanka Navy seized 500 kilograms of illegal narcotics on April 15, seized another stash of illegal drugs on April 30th and May 15. The Deputy Solicitor General further said that the investigations have revealed that suspects had mixed salt and a type of flavouring agent with the seized heroin stash in the storeroom of the Police Narcotics Bureau, while taking out a similar quantity of heroin from the stash and produced a lesser quantity of seized heroin to the court. He requested the court to grant permission to detain the suspects for a period of 7 days for further interrogations, considering the severity of the case. After considering the submissions, the Colombo Chief Magistrate Lanka Jayaratna ordered the special unit of the Criminal Investigation Department to detain the suspects for further interrogations. The police have been able to seize a stash of weaponry including grenades and another T-56 firearm with information obtained from the suspects arrested with the firearms in Pitipana area in Homagama in 2 various occasions. The weapon stash was recovered from Aturugiriya and Homagama areas. The Criminal Investigation Department conducted the raids last night and this morning. According to the information revealed from the interrogations, a suspect was taken into custody along with a T-56 firearm. The arrested suspect is a 38-year-old person of the age and a resident of the Habarakanda area. According to the information obtained from the suspect, CID was able to seize another stash of firearms and grenades in a house in Kendalanda in the area in Homagama during another raid carried out this morning. CID was able to seize 4 grenades, a pistol, a Gulcutters-type weapon and 2 detonators, an air rifle and 600 live ammunition for the rifle, handcuffs and 3 DVRs during the raid. Meanwhile, an Android phone was recovered from a cell number 3 in Busa prison, which detains the organised criminal Kanjipani Imran. The officers attached to the police special task force assigned for security of the prison seized 4 SIM cards and charged along with the phone during a raid carried out yesterday. The seized items have been handed over to the Criminal Investigations Department. Meanwhile, 2 accomplices of an organised criminal Barrel Sanka have been taken into custody in Kelani area. The police have said that they had illegal drugs in their possession at the time of their arrest. The police headquarters have stated that these suspects were wanted persons for allegedly demanding the ransom for the businessmen and drug trafficking in the area. The court has ordered to remand the suspects till July 8th after they were produced before the courts. Meanwhile, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has instructed not to use his photographs by candidates contesting the upcoming election in their propaganda campaign. No public officials serving in security forces, government service, corporations, boards and statutory bodies should engage in political activities, the President further instructed. Secretary to the President P.B. Jayasundara in a letter sent yesterday to all governors, ministry secretaries, district and provincial secretaries, heads of corporations, boards and statutory bodies and other heads of divisions stated that information has been received to the effect that candidates contesting the election are using the photographs of the President in their campaign, secure service of the army officers and public officials and promised job appointments. The President has instructed his secretary to strictly advise relevant parties not to use the photograph of the President in election campaign and the public officials to refrain from engaging in political activities. The Secretary, in his letter to the governors, ministry secretaries and heads of entities with a copy to the Chairman of the Elections Commission, has instructed to ensure that all the government officials strictly follow these orders.
And meanwhile, Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena says that the government will take steps to provide prompt solutions for the issues faced by the consumers with the electricity bill increase. He made these remarks while addressing the media briefing held to announce the cabinet decisions at the Government Information Department today. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena requested the public to check the electricity bills of 3 months prior to the COVID-19 outbreak in March. He said that the proposal to be submitted on a suitable mechanism to rectify the electricity bills if there are any faults in the bills received after the month of March, and expected to provide reliefs for the public accordingly.
සතිය වන විට ක්‍රමවේදයක් සකස් කරගෙන ඇවිල්ලා ඒ සඳහා සාහනයක් ලබා දෙන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන බව අපි දැනුම් දෙනවා.
The minister also briefed on the loan assistance received from various countries in the world to curb the spread of the COVID-19 outbreak. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena said that a total of 173.6 worth loan assistance have been received from the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, International Monetary Fund and World Health Organization. He added that the main financial allocation is at 75. The worth of 4.2 of the goods is at $252 million, he added. The minister said that the country is yet to receive these funds as US dollars. He said that the certain funds can be obtained after producing the bills for acquiring goods and services. He said that the country is yet to receive the $252 million US dollars in cash. He added that these funds are MOUs. The minister also informed that the complete final report of the Lalita Siri Gunawardena Committee over the MCC agreement has been submitted to the Cabinet of Ministers. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena said that the President has requested each minister to submit their own opinion on this regard to the Cabinet. Accordingly, he added that each minister will table a report in this regard. He said that the stance of the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa is that the government will not enter into an agreement which is against the Constitution, legal framework, sovereignty and national existence.
Meanwhile, former Minister Vijayadasa Rajapaksa says that he provided evidence to prove that the former Minister Dr. Rajitha Senaratne obtained 20 million rupees from Avantgarde Company. He made those comments at a press briefing of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna today. Former Minister Vijayadasa Rajapaksa said that former Minister Dr. Rajitha Senaratne challenged him to prove that Mr. Senaratne obtained 20 million rupees from Avantgarde Company as a ransom. Mr. Rajapaksa said he obtained those evidence from the owner of the Avantgarde Company. At the press conference, former Minister Rajapaksa presented copies of several cheques with a value of 5 million rupees. At the same time, he showed another set of bank documents related to the incident. Mr. Rajapaksa further said that this issue was raised at a cabinet meeting of the previous government. Meanwhile, Russia voted by a landslide to pass the constitutional changes that will allow Vladimir Putin to run for president twice more, potentially extending his rule until 2036. According to official preliminary results published today, around 78% voted in favor of the amendments, which included a boost in pensions, versus 21% against.
Russians have paved the way for Vladimir Putin to stay in power until 2036. In a 7-day vote which culminated on Wednesday, they overwhelmingly gave their approval for a package of constitutional changes, according to initial results. The 67-year-old former KGB officer has ruled the country for more than 2 decades as president or prime minister. Now he's won the right to run for 2 more terms after his current term expires in 2024. It means Putin could remain president for 16 more years. On this momentous day for the country, some were voting from their hospital bed. Russians have been encouraged to vote with prize draws offering apartments. And there's been an ad campaign highlighting other constitutional amendments, such as pensions protection and a de facto ban on same-sex marriages. One-off payments of 10,000 rubles or $141 were also transferred to those with children at Putin's order as people headed to polling stations on Wednesday. In a speech on Tuesday, Putin made no mention of how the constitutional changes could affect his own career. He has said he's yet to decide on his future. Critics say they are sure he will run again.
And meanwhile, fully recovered COVID-19 patients in the country has exceeded 88%, with a total of 1,827 patients being discharged from hospitals following complete recovery from the disease. A total of 7 COVID-19 patients was detected from the country today. A total of 79 COVID-19 patients have been discharged from hospitals following their recoveries today. A total of 1,827 COVID-19 patients have been discharged from hospitals following their recoveries, and the percentage of COVID-19 recoveries in the country stands at 88.64%. A total of 223 COVID-19 patients are currently under medical care in hospitals, and this is a percentage of 10.81%. Meanwhile, the Rotary District 3220 Sri Lanka and Maldives organization has donated a fully automated PCR machine to the Medical Research Institute of Sri Lanka to expedite the diagnosis process of COVID-19. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa was briefed on the operational aspect of the new PCR machine at the Presidential Secretariat last evening. The value of the new instrument is over 222 million rupees. It is significant that this new machine will help mitigate human resource shortage in conducting medical testing. Physicians have pointed out that the new machine ensures high speed, high accuracy and efficiency. It has the ability to identify different kinds of viruses that may emerge in the future as well. The Rotary Sri Lanka organization has donated over 120 million rupees to provide medical research equipment and facilities to combat the COVID-19 outbreak. President Rajapaksa expressed his gratitude to the representatives of the organization for their donation. A group of 63 Sri Lankans stranded in India unable to return to the country due to the COVID-19 outbreak was brought down yesterday. Another group of 60 Sri Lankans returned to the country from Maldives this morning. They were directed to the PCR test upon their arrival, and steps were taken to send them to quarantine centers.
News for you now on COVID-19 on a global perspective. Close to 10.8 million people around the world have been diagnosed with the coronavirus, and over 5.6 million have recovered from the disease. More than 519,000 fatalities have been reported across the world thus far. Meanwhile, over 52,000 cases in 24-hour period reported in the US, marking the biggest one-day spike since the start of the pandemic, as death toll hits 130,000, while infections in India surpass 600,000. The novel coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, has affected more than 213 countries and territories around the world. The United States reported 52,789 new coronavirus cases yesterday, the largest single-day total since the start of the pandemic. Across the country, states are casting aside plans for a gradual return to normalcy, with California, Michigan and New York City the latest to rethink some aspects of reopening. More than 800,000 new coronavirus cases were detected in the United States in June, many of them in Sunbelt states that were quick to reopen. At least 130,798 deaths have been reported since the start of the pandemic. Brazil surpassed 60,000 coronavirus deaths yesterday, with a recent wave of contamination in southern and midwestern areas of the country, taking the overall number of fatalities to 60,632. Nearly 1,449,000 confirmed cases have been reported thus far, making Brazil the country with the second worst outbreak in the world, behind the United States. India's coronavirus infections surpassed 600,000 today, with 17,834 deaths as authorities battle to contain the pandemic while easing lockdown rules. The increased presence a severe challenge for India's strained medical capacity and overburdened health system. An easing phase called Unlock 2 was announced last Monday, allowing more economic activities to resume even as some densely populated containment zones stay under lock.
Global manufacturers of various kinds of devices that read body temperature from near or far are experiencing a boom in business due to the coronavirus pandemic. Thermal cameras can facilitate quick detection of fever by comparing a person's body heat with that of the immediate surroundings while maintaining required physical distance. Companies and government authorities are extensively utilizing these devices as preliminary tests to determine if an individual is a carrier of the infection.
From the option of pointing and clicking to the ones embedded and mounted into cameras to full-body readers similar to X-ray machines, body temperature scanners are all the rage. Manufacturers around the world like FLIR Systems can't make them fast enough to keep up with surging demand. Chris Bainter is director of FLIR's Global Business Development.
We're seeing exponential demand really from every industry and globally. In Q1, we had bookings of over 100 million, and they were mainly tied to our handheld battery-powered solutions because of their ability to be rapidly deployed. Now what we're seeing with customers is gravitating towards our more automated fixed mount solutions that can be more readily integrated into existing access control and security protocols.
The global thermal imaging market is estimated to grow to $4.6 billion by 2025 from $3.4 billion this year, according to research firm Markets and Markets. International airports were the early adopters, preferring camera-mounted scanners that wouldn't add much time to security checks passengers were already accustomed to. But then companies looking to remain open and protect workers jumped on the bandwagon, sending orders skyrocketing. Thermotechnics Systems Operations Director Max Salisbury says he's gone from selling just 10 systems a month to over 100 systems a day.
Initially, there was a big peak, and some of our large corporate customers, such as Tyson Foods, who use our system, placed a large number of orders right at the beginning of this outbreak. We then had, from there, an absolute takeoff in orders. And now with this, I mean, it's not really a second wave, it's just a continuing wave of coronavirus in the US. We can't build them fast enough to meet demand. So it's very, very busy.
Scanning temperatures quickly to get the most people through the door, whether that's the corporate lobby, at the airport, or even in malls and movie theaters, is what led ThermalPass to come up with this full-body fever detection system, according to Michael Lendy, president and CEO of ThermalPass's parent company, Internet of Things.
It was innovation inspired out of a necessity to get this crippled economy back to normal, to get people out of their houses, to get people in malls, to get people back in the office space in a post-COVID world. And it's looking for 96.8 degrees Fahrenheit. So its accuracy is tremendous in that there are 20 readings happening per second and they're touchless.
But none of the body temperature taking devices on the market come cheap. Systems that include the cameras, displays, and other needed hardware cost between $5,000 to $10,000 a pop. But with all areas of business looking to reassure workers and customers, many CEOs are finding that's a small price to pay to keep the global economy going.
Meanwhile, South Korea has started distributing stocks of COVID-19 treatment remdesivir that have donated by Gilead Sciences Incorporation after the company agreed to allocate nearly all of its supply of the drug to the United States over the next 3 months. South Korea reported 54 new cases as the virus continues to spread beyond the capital area, as the total cases nationwide has reached 12,904, with the death toll staying at 282.
South Korea has started distributing stocks of the COVID-19 treatment remdesivir that were donated by the drug maker Gilead Sciences after the United States secured nearly all of its supply of the drug over the next 3 months. Speaking at a news conference, the director for the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said South Korea plans to begin talks to purchase more supplies in August, making it the first country to disclose a timeline for talks with Gilead. Remdesivir is expected to be in high demand as one of the few treatments shown to alter the course of COVID-19. But the US has already secured more than 500,000 treatment courses of the drug, which represents 100% of Gilead's projected production for July and 90% in August and September. The intravenously administered medicine has won emergency use authorization in several countries and full approval in Japan after a clinical trial showed it helped shorten hospital stays. Gilead said this week it had priced remdesivir at $390 per vial in developed countries, and based on current treatment patterns, a course of remdesivir equates to $2,340 per patient. The price has been a topic of intense debate since US regulators approved its emergency use in some COVID-19 patients in May. Experts have said Gilead would need to avoid appearing to take advantage of a health crisis for profits. Last week, the European Union's healthcare regulator recommended conditional approval of the drug when used in the critically ill. The formal go-ahead by the European Commission is expected to follow soon. Gilead has linked up with generic drug makers based in India and Pakistan, including Cipla and Hetero Labs, in order to make and supply remdesivir in 127 developing countries.
And from South Korea to Australia, it was a tale of two cities in Australia yesterday, with Sydney lifting restrictions on cinemas and theatres, while Melbourne locked down around 300,000 people in suburbs for a month to contain the risk of corona infections. Australia has recorded around 8,000 cases and 104 deaths. However, the recent jump in Victoria has stoked fears of a second wave of COVID-19, echoing concerns expressed in other countries.
It was a tale of two cities in Australia's major hubs on Wednesday, as Sydney further relaxed restrictions while parts of Melbourne locked down. The legendary Randwick Ritz was one of the first cinemas in Sydney to reopen, with moviegoers relieved to be back in their seats.
It's fantastic. It's a fantastic feeling to be out and about after so much time in lockdown.
Other performance venues and theme parks were also allowed to open up in New South Wales, with social distancing requirements of 1 person per 4 square metres being applied. But it was a different story further south, with authorities locking down more than 300,000 people in suburbs north of Melbourne for a month to contain the risks of infection after 2 weeks of double-digit rises in new cases. More than 30 suburbs in Australia's second biggest city will return to stage 3 restrictions, the third strictest level. That means residents will be confined to home except for grocery shopping, health appointments, work or caregiving and exercise. Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews says the state needs to work collectively.
If we all work together, if we all follow the rules, then we will beat this, and we will be able to bring some stability to those hotspots, drive down case numbers and then resume our program of cautious easing.
The spike in cases has been linked to staff members at hotels housing returned travellers, for which quarantine protocols were not strictly followed. Victorian state authorities have announced an investigation into the matter.
And following corporate, individual donations and direct deposits, Etakama COVID-19 Healthcare and Social Security Fund balance has now surpassed 1,423 million rupees. Today's donations included 361,438 rupees by the Prime Minister's Office, 1.2 million rupees by Housing Development and Finance Corporation Bank of Sri Lanka, 100,000 rupees by Sri Lanka Eye Donation Society, 1 million rupees by NSB Fund Management Company Limited and 1 million rupees by Sri Lanka Savings Bank. Cheques related to these donations were handed over to the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. In addition, Cooperative Provincial Rural Bank Society in Matale donated 500,000 rupees and Govijana Development Department 4.4 million rupees to the funds. Minister Chamal Rajapaksa handed over the cheques to the President. The cheque worth 300,000 rupees contributed by National Institute of Language Education and Training was handed over by Minister Janaka Bandaru Tennakon. Lelavala Bandusena Guruge donated 50,000 rupees, JAD Anasta donated a sum of 25,000 rupees and Mayors of Colombo Rosi Senanayaka made a donation of 30,000 rupees. Mahapala High Educational Scholarship Trust Fund made a sum of 102,000 rupees worth donation, while Science and Technology Human Resources Development Project at the Ministry of Higher Education, Technology and Innovation donated 208,000 rupees. Reverend Dr. Haris Patwe Arinalan Shankara Thairo Fund made a donation of 50,000 rupees, while Tamil Artists Association contributed 20,000 rupees. Friends Lanka Child Foundation donated 600,000 rupees and KSK Vijayaratna 35,000 rupees. Local as well as foreign donors have made their contributions to the fund. Deposits can be made through cheques, telegraph transfers via www.itakama.lk or Baling #207#. Stay tuned for more local stories at the other side of this break.
Welcome back to the news. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa assures to extend fullest assistance to protect artists, integrating them into local economic environment without waiting the world to win against COVID-19. During former President Mahinda Rajapaksa's tenure, the contribution of artists was sought for various activities. This was instrumental in artists from top to bottom to provide their aesthetic contribution, the President said. The President further said the groundwork will be created to harness lost opportunities in the face of COVID-19 pandemic. President made these comments during a discussion on issues faced by artists held at the Presidential Secretariat yesterday. Professor Mudian Sedisanayake pointed out the importance of teaching aesthetic subjects up to O-level and A-level. President said that this proposal will be forwarded to the Task Force on National Education Policy. The reasons for not receiving royalties by the artists domestically as well as internationally were discussed in depth. The country has lost more than $20 million foreign income due to this situation. The artists informed the President that they do not receive royalties for songs broadcasted over local electronic media either. The President and the Prime Minister said measures will be taken at the government level to rectify the situation and to protect the rights of the artists. Government's decision to offer loans for artists under a low interest rate was admired. However, the failure to implement this decision by state banks was also highlighted during the discussion. Artists also conveyed the importance of taxing foreign content and pooling it for the benefit of local artists. It was decided to launch the project proposal to allow foreign movie makers to do their shootings in local landscapes in exchange for foreign currency. The requirement to look after individual artists in rural areas at divisional and provincial levels was also discussed. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, Secretary to the President P.B. Jayasundara, ministers, relevant officials, a number of movie directors, actors, singers, lyricists representing the artistic sphere participated in the event.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa says that steps will be taken to provide necessary solutions for the issues pertaining to the employees of the postal services following discussions with the Cabinet of Ministers. The Prime Minister made these remarks during a discussion held with the Sri Lanka Podujana Postal Services Trade Union Alliance at Temple Trees yesterday. Sri Lanka Podujana Postal Services Trade Union Alliance has indicated that a great injustice has occurred to the entire postal workforce due to incompetent decisions taken by the Postal Department with the implementation of the State Administration 6 of 2006 circular. The representatives of the Trade Union Alliance pointed out that even though a decision was reached to draft a new service constitution as a practical solution for the prevailing issues, yet failed to implement the initiative with the formation of the Yahapalana government. They have further indicated that the recommendations provided to resolve the issues through the Ranuk Commission during the latter part of the Yahapalana government have further inconvenienced the majority of postal service workers. The Prime Minister said solutions for the relevant issues will be provided after discussing with the Cabinet of Ministers. Secretary to the Prime Minister Gamini Senarath will also present on this occasion. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has instructed Chairman of Ceylon Electricity Board Vijitha Herath to make necessary arrangement to obtain electricity supply from 38 small-scale power plants, of which the agreements were annulled during the Yahapalana government to Sri Lanka Electricity Board. The domestic businessmen own power stations while enter into agreements next week to provide electricity for the Electricity Board. Accordingly, a total of 75 megawatts of power will be supplied to the national grid through these power plants. The annual report for the year 2019 of the National Savings Bank was presented to the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa yesterday. A donation of 1 billion rupees was presented to the Prime Minister by the subsidiaries of National Savings Bank, Sri Lanka Savings Bank and Financial Management Limited on behalf of the COVID-19 Healthcare and Social Security Fund yesterday. Chairperson of National Savings Bank, Keshula Jayawardena, was present on this occasion.
Approval was granted for several cabinet papers submitted to the Cabinet of Ministers recently. The approval of the Cabinet of Ministers was granted to obtain financial provisions worth 135 million rupees on monthly basis from the Treasury for the payment of the salaries of the employees and other expenditure in the Central Cultural Fund, which has encountered a grave financial crisis. The relevant proposal was presented by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. The Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal to award the contract to supply food items required by the Department of Prisons to the current supplier itself from August 1st, 2020 to January 31st, 2021. The relevant Cabinet paper was presented by Minister Nimal Siripala de Silva. Internal competitive bids have been invited for the procurement of fertilizer for Lanka Fertilizer Limited at the Colombo Commercial Fertilizer Limited for the necessary requirement for this month. The Cabinet of Ministers has given the consent to the proposals submitted to award the procurement of fertilizer supplying, considering the recommendations given by the Standing Procurement Committee appointed by the Cabinet of Ministers with regard to those prices. The Cabinet paper was submitted by Minister Chamal Rajapaksa. The Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal submitted by Minister Chamal Rajapaksa for the direct awarding of the contract of consultation services relevant to the renovation activities of the Govijana Mandirya building to re-establish the Ministry of Mahaweli, Agriculture, Irrigation and Rural Development to the Central Engineering Consultancy Bureau, while the contract for the construction activities to the Central Engineering Services Private Limited. The Cabinet of Ministers considered the information furnished by Minister Chamal Rajapaksa on the actions taken for purchasing stocks of remaining fertilizer by the agrarian development centres imported under the fertilizer subsidy program for paddy cultivation and marketing. A sack of fertilizer consisted of 50 kilograms to a sum of 1,000 rupees to the cultivators. The Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal to extend the period of loan grant applicable to the Northern Highway Connection project financed by the Asian Development Bank up to December 31st, 2020. The proposal was submitted by Minister Johnston Fernando. The Cabinet of Ministers also approved the proposal to perform the production activities of Lanka Tile Corporation without a participation of a private investor to re-inaugurate the manufacturing activities of Ombudsman Factory under the restructuring of Lanka Tile Corporation. The proposal was submitted by Minister Vimal Veeravansa. The Cabinet of Ministers extended its approval for the extension of the contract with the Central Engineering Consultancy Bureau for the construction services of the Bodland hydropower plant. The Cabinet paper was submitted by Minister Mahinda Amravira. The Cabinet approval was granted for the proposal presented to renew and install the Sri Lankan Airlines aviation insurance policy for a period of 2020 to 2021. This was from Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation. The proposal was submitted by Minister Prasanna Ranatunga. The Cabinet of Ministers granted approval for the proposal to proceed with the construction of the Ruanpura Expressway using the funds of local banks and the services of local construction companies. The proposal was submitted by Minister Johnston Fernando. The Cabinet of Ministers decided to request the Minister of Environment to furnish an appropriate mechanism for vesting powers with the district and divisional secretaries to engage lands considered as state residual forests for other purposes on temporary basis without harming the residual forest environment and wildlife.
And meanwhile, former MP Ruvan Wijewardena says that those who broke away from United National Party have no political existence. He said that they became political refugees after leaving their parties in the past. Former MP Ruvan Wijewardena said that fellow members of the UNP are contesting for the upcoming election from Samaki Janabalawege. He said that such parties claim that UNP has no senior leader in the party. However, he said that make such claims will remain leader until they remain in UNP. He added that after the departure, they will cease to become leaders in the greater society. He further added that UNP is a party which sees strong leaders in the country.
එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂය තමයි ප්‍රබලයෝ හදන්නේ. සමගි බලවේගයේ ඉන්න සියලුම මේ ප්‍රබලයෝ කියලා කියන කට්ටිය නමක් හැදුවේ එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂෙන්.
The strike action launched by the employees of the Colombo port was temporarily suspended today. It was called off after carrying out negotiations with Minister Johnston Fernando. 3 members of the Colombo Port Trade Union commenced an indefinite strike action yesterday, demanding to fix 3 gantry cranes imported from China in the eastern terminal. The strike was launched on top of a 187 feet long crane. The employees of the Colombo port also joined the trade union action while extending their support for the 3 employees who were on top of the crane. After conducting negotiations with Minister Johnston Fernando, the Colombo port employees agreed to call off the strike action temporarily. Taking a look at foreign news now, fires Amazon rainforest in Brazil escalated by almost 20% in June, a 13-year high for the month according to the government data. With such an increase at the start of the dry season, there are concerns that this year's fires could surpass 2019's disastrous blaze. In June, the country recorded 2,248 fires using satellite imagery as opposed to 1,880 fires in June 2019. The burning usually increases throughout July, August and September.
High above Brazil's Amazon rainforest, patches of scorched earth are bringing attention to an alarming problem. Raging forest fires, which rose 20% last month and are putting the lives of dozens of indigenous tribes at serious risk. The fires, which are set to clear land after trees have been cut down, have environmentalists like Romulo Batista worried about the dangers of increasing deforestation.
From January to May this year, we've had more than 650,000 hectares with a deforestation alert, according to the National Institute for Space Research. That is 78% higher than last year.
The indigenous tribes of the Amazon now face the double threat of an environmental and public health crisis. Health experts fear the smoke, which blankets the forest during the dry season and causes respiratory problems, could also provide further complications for patients with COVID-19. The disease has battered indigenous communities living in the region, tribes which have no immunity to external diseases and live a communal lifestyle that rules out social distancing. Carlos Souza Jr. of the nonprofit Amazon explains.
The clearing of land already represents a serious health problem. If we have land clearing and COVID-19 together, this could bring catastrophic consequences for the residents of the region.
Environmentalists largely blame the increasing destruction of the rainforest on the policies of right-wing President Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro deployed the Brazilian armed forces to protect the Amazon in May, but deforestation is still on the rise. He has called for more farming and mining in protected areas of the Amazon while defending the country for still preserving the majority of the rainforest. The Amazon Environmental Research Institute predicts that at the current pace of deforestation, some 9,000 square kilometers of the Amazon will be cut down by the end of this month.
And now on your sports update this evening, former Sri Lankan cricket captain Kumar Sangakkara recorded a statement with a special investigation unit established to probe into the offences related to sporting activities today over the match-fixing allegations pertaining to the finals of the 2011 ICC World Cup. Former Sri Lankan cricket captain Mahela Jayawardene has been summoned to until tomorrow to record a statement. The Special Investigation Unit to probe into the offences related to sporting activities has been established at Sugatadasa Sports Complex, Colombo. Former captain Kumar Sangakkara arrived to the unit to record a statement at 9:10 a.m. this morning. The Special Investigation Unit recorded a statement from the former Sri Lankan skipper for more than 9 hours.